Hi guys, this is Todd with Real Active Wellness. Thanks for joining me again. Today I'm going to talk to you about an idea of progressions. I find in the industry, one of two things is going to happen when people get into exercise, whether they hire a trainer or taking classes, doing things on their own, is they're either going to get better fast or they're going to get worse fast. One of the two. And the harder you push yourself, the more this concept comes into play, the more important it is. So with the idea of progression, really what we're talking about is where are we starting with a client and how quickly do we move into this next stage or this next level of a progression. So real quick background, there's basically 7 movement patterns that all human beings share. They're specific to the human body. These are the 7 up here: squats, lunges, bend pattern, push, pull, twist, and gait. Gait would be an example, say walking, jogging, running, something along those lines. For this example of progression, I'm going to choose one. And let's say I choose lunge as our exercise. By the way, all exercises are some deviation of these 7. All exercises are some deviation of these 7. So with a lunge, let's say a real basic lunge is a split squat. So a split squat might look like this. You have one foot in front of the other, and I'm going to go down and up. This is called a split squat. It's of the lunge pattern. So in a split squat, there are certain things that I'm going to look for to make sure that I'm doing the movement right. Is my spine staying vertical, or as I go down, do I lose core stability and break at the hip? Does my knee cave in on the way down? Does my spine deviate laterally on the way down? Does my hip push out? Some basic coaching points or key indicators of what makes a lunge good or not so good, so we know what to work on with the client. Now let's say that somebody doesn't do that lunge very well, which is a very basic lunge. It's kind of starting at the beginning. There is no reason to take that client into a more progressive, a more challenging lunge if they can't do that one very well. So for example, if this is our stationary lunge and they do well, let's say now we progress into a lunge that you go forward and then backwards. So you're actually moving your feet from one position to the next. Or maybe we add a backwards lunge or a reverse lunge. And then let's say we start getting a little bit more creative and we start getting more multi-directional. So now we might be going out at an angle or back at an angle, or we can go into what's called like clock squats, where you lunge out all the way around the clock on your right side and then the left side. And then we want to add even more variables, so we're going to progress it even more. So let's say we get out here and we start doing things that are a little bit more involved, like you're holding weight over your head with one hand as you're going through some sort of a walking lunge pattern where you're actually covering space, you're covering ground across the room. And then we want to get even more involved, more variables, even more dynamic, and we start doing things like alternating jumping lunges where we're going back and forth, or we start doing side-to-side jumping lunges. Some people call them skaters, or I'll refer to that as a dynamic lateral lunge. The point is this: progressions can go almost forever in this direction. And you can always regress back to the most basic element that you can possibly imagine. When you're working on yourself, or if you're a trainer or a therapist and you're working with other people, here is the key. You want to take your client or yourself to the progression where they can be successful barely. And that's going to be the sweet spot. That's where you're going to make the swiftest, most significant amount of improvement. If you're working here, but you can do this one really well, this one you can't do very well, this one you can't do very well, but you're working there anyway, you're going to get worse fast. If you're working here, but you're really capable of this progression, it's not a bad thing, but your effectiveness and how quickly you're moving forward and growing and getting better is going to be somewhat limited. So figure out, where do you fall with all of these exercises in terms of where can you be successful barely? That's where you want to live. Those are the exercises that you want to choose when choosing which type of squat, which type of lunge, which type of a push pattern. Play around with that. Figure out where do you fall, work there. That will help you progress most quickly to the next progression. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any comments or questions, join us on Facebook, Real Active Wellness.